welcome to a very spooky edition of The Last Video Store. It is our Halloween special here on the show today. What we normally do on this show is me, Alexei, your movie guru and guide to cinema at large. We'll give you some great recommendations on movies I think you're going to love. But today we're doing something even more specific than that. We're going to be looking at the best vampire films of all time. And I could not do this alone. I had to be joined by, I would say, the premier vampiristic expert of all things sharp teeth, sparkly skin, and winged beasts. We're joined by one of my favorite horror experts in the world, the author of The Graveyard Shift, Maria Lewis.
Thanks so much for having me. And Alexei, I got to ask, you're 17, babe, but how long have you been 17?
A heck of a long time. Yes, let the record show I have sparkled up for this episode because I knew you would go all out. You're wearing a wonderful Dracula sweatshirt at the moment.
Yeah.
And I had to match you, so I've sparkled up my skin and I've got a denim shirt on, like one of the outfits Edward Cullen wears across
I love
6
that.
movies.
Like, let me match her freak by being Greek Cullen. You know what I mean? Weirdly more diverse than the franchise itself.
But we had to do this. You and I both love vampire films.
Love
them. And I think they've got an interesting little space in horror because obviously Dracula, he's one of the great horror monsters of all time. He is literally the most adapted non-human character from fiction into film and television.
I believe that.
So we have to do something about vampirism.
Also kind of the first found footage horror thing, if you think about it, because Dracula is all told through the perspective of found media, whether that's like letters or contracts. Diaries. The OG Blair Witch, if you will.
I will with you, because when I reread Dracula a couple of years ago, that is what really stood out to me.
I know.
When I read it for the first time as a teenager, it didn't really connect with me. Going back to it now, it's now my favorite book.
Yeah.
And it's
really?
I think so.
That's sick you learnt to read. I'm really happy to hear.
Graveyard Shift number 3, my third favorite book.
Well, you get a thank you in the back of that, so I feel self-serving. Bram Stoker didn't thank you. Fucking
No, not
poor
yet.
bastard.
Not yet. But we're talking about vampires today, and for a very express reason, you and I, just the day after Halloween, are hosting the Saturday Morning Film Club at the Opera House, a screening of Dracula from the mind of Bram Stoker and Francis Ford Coppola.
One of my favorite films, period, of all time ever, but also for this specific exercise, you were like, no Dracula films.
Yes, we signed an NDA. No Draculas allowed. No Draculas allowed.
Because it could just be 3 Dracula films a piece.
Exactly.
So it just like if you take Dracula off the table and also if you take Sinners off the table because it's so fresh, it really like leaves you some space to explore some things.
Exactly. And I was going to say, we love Dracula, especially that Francis Ford Coppola version. Come join us Saturday, the 1st of November at the Sydney Opera House. The links are in the show notes. Saturday Morning Film Club. Essentially what it is, we come out, we introduce the movie, we all watch this great movie together, and it's a film that's so rich, so beautifully made, there's so much to talk about it, and that's exactly what we do after the film. We come out and we kick off a conversation with the audience there on the morning to talk about this film. It's a film that's so much to talk about.
It's such a beautiful little Venn diagram of Universal movie monster-y kind of stuff, because you think about how often do you get the chance to watch one of the great horror masterpieces, and Coppola's Dracula, at the Opera House. Hello, little Phantom of the Opera refo. And it's just like, it's such a special movie. It's one of those ones where like during COVID that when I was having like a little minty bee, as we all did, where you had those movies that you were just like on repeat. And I just watched that movie dead ass like twice a week.
Yeah.
Every week. And it's so special. It has so much stuff that's incredible filmmaking and craft and technically brilliant, and also just some of the weirdest shit you've ever seen on camera, including the Keanu performance, which I actually don't think is that bad, but it is just very interesting.
Of the texture. You need something a little bit weird and off to make that film really sing harmoniously.
And
I think that's
Anthony
what it is.
Hopkins is just as weird and off. His Van Helsing performance, where he's like, yeah, she was in great pain, so we cut off her head and put a stake through her heart, is fun. Wackadoo. Some of the best costumes on cinema ever.
Absolutely. Oh my God. We started an NDA, no Dracula's Allowed, and here we are going all about Dracula.
Sorry.
But we're going to be here November 1st at the Sydney Opera House screening Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola masterpiece I've never seen it on the big screen.
Have you never?
That's exactly why I programmed it.
Are you
Because I was like, I got to
serious?
see this on the big screen.
Oh, babes. Well, let me tell you, you never forget the first time you see a werewolf fuck a woman on the big screen. Like, what happens in
I've
that
only
movie?
seen that on small screens so far. But
Something for everyone. The werewolf girlies, the vampire boys. There's a treat for all.
we're all there. So that is Bram Stoker's Dracula. In my opinion, probably the best vampire film ever made.
Yeah, it's definitely in my
It's
top
up there.
3.
Now we have signed that NDA. There will be no Draculas allowed from
None.
henceforth.
Time to take my top off.
Put that in the clip.
Put it in.
We're
yeah.
going to be talking about a list of 8 great vampire films, the best that we think that we want to recommend to you guys for your Halloween season. Trying to hit all around the board. I would say one of the big reasons I want to get you in here on this podcast finally is you and I, you're one of my favorite people to talk about films with. And for a large part, that is because I think you and I have tastes that often drift away.
Oh, very much
But when
so.
they click together magnetically, that is even better.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to have quite a differing, diverse list because it's you and I putting it together.
Yeah, I remember you came and stayed at my place in Melbourne and left a really horny Dracula DVD behind, which was the 1979 Dracula with Frank Langella. And you're like, I think there's something special in here. You'll enjoy this. And I was like, whoa! Like, do I want to fuck Frank Langella? Like, for the first time in my life.
When you watch that movie, you absolutely do.
Hairy chest,
Yeah.
intense eyes, but also what they tweaked and fucked around with in terms of like the Mia Harker, the Lucy of it all was really interesting.
Yep.
I was like, wow, this actually definitely has something. It's very, very different. And also when we were discussing this list, I was like, you need to choose some things that people have actually seen.
Wow, yes.
Because I know your tendency to be a bit of a
To be
film wanker.
no, you let the record show. If you're not watching the YouTube, she did mime a masturbatory gesture, but I'm all about helping people find things I think they're gonna love. And
It's going to
so
be
are
some
you.
fucking Scandinavian vampire thing.
Yes, there will be one Scandinavian fucking vampire movie on my list. But we are going to do 8 films. We've got a shared number 1. We also have a shared number 8. I'm holding my hands up as if I've got fucking 8 fingers. So why don't we start at our shared number 8? And I think the only reason this film is coming in at number 8 is because it is so new. But I think this film, as soon as it landed, it felt like an instant classic in every genre it touches. And the genre that it touches so beautifully is vampire horror. We are talking about Sinners from 2025, Ryan Coogler's, dare I say, modern masterpiece. I think this is very much one of the greatest films I've seen this year, but its exploration of genre and using genre as a tool to communicate about grander, more important sociological, societal themes, cultural themes is so expertly delivered to an audience in a language they really understand. Tell me about Sinners. We have not talked about this film together at all yet.
It is, for me, so far the best film of 2025. I really don't see that changing because it is one of those really special cinematic experiences. I think, especially when you're an adult and you go to the movies and you're like a lover of cinema.
And a lover of genre.
Hearing Cougs is on a vampire movie, like... Mate, bring a bucket and a mop. I was extremely generally excited. But it was also this thing when I saw it, I had no idea what to expect. I have a thing where I don't watch trailers. It's not anybody's fault. It's just that like theatrically the risk is so high now. So everything gets put in trailers. So I just stopped watching trailers when I didn't have to write about movies for work anymore. So I went into it really, really blind and just was so blown away and so moved by it and just completely knocked me for 6 in the way that I think it's very rare that you can say it's a great film, period, before the vampires are even introduced.
Yeah.
And the lore is so rich. Coogler has this amazing thing, and I got to interview Ruthie Carter earlier this year, and it was so fascinating, who's his, longtime costume designer,
Yeah.
first black woman to win 2 Oscars.
Finally as well, because she's already a legend before she starts
Spike
with
Lee,
Coogler, all of Spike Lee's films.
Incredible. But her interest in history and pop culture and color theory and the specific ways that you can use physicality to communicate story and the way that pairs up with Coogler and the way that this is in the lead up to Sinners, and the way she was talking about various choices that they made and implemented and the vision that they had. genuinely didn't see this film coming, was so blown away by it the first time I saw it that I kind of had this little like anxiety twitch where I needed to get the fuck back in the theater and see it like within 24 hours. So I was there at the 10 a.m. session at the like Village Cinemas, fucking 10 a.m. on the Thursday morning, me and probably like 30 other people. Like it was pretty packed for the first session of the day, just to see it again and experience it again. And then I took friends of mine with me who are not genre people at all and are white and are like white gay guys who aren't into genre. And I'm just like, shut up, you'll love this. And they were blown away, crying by the end. Like it's just that film where it really, a great film or like a classic film can penetrate all demographics while being super specific to what the intent is. And you lose none of the cultural specificity or intent of Coogler's message, while at the same time that movie is just so genuinely emotional, scary, entertaining, exciting, action-packed, visually stunning, that it can appeal to everybody.
And before we wrap up this talk on Sinners, to speak on it as a vampire film, the vampiristic metaphor in this, I think, is so strong because it takes this idea of colonization and cultural vampirism and literalizes it in a really nice way. And I think it does so because what does so really well is a less elegant film or a smaller film would go, well, this film is going to put the vampires as like the KKK in this film, but instead it plays as something that's a more imprecise metaphor, which I think makes it more real in the film, and it makes that lore sing more. Where you've got this the vampires of Irish heritage, which suggests that his culture has also been colonized in there, and I think it makes that metaphor so potent, and it lets you read so much more into it without having to put it all up on the screen or all in this uber text out there. You can read it so much deeper.
And even just the design of the vamp, like I always appreciated interesting vampiric design. Like give me something that's a little bit different to what I've seen before or operates a little bit different. And yes, okay, the hive mind of it all, and that's like really fascinating and interesting. But the construction of Jack O'Connell's vampire by the end, where it really is extremely like heavy metal with the long claws and the teeth and the like the fire tunnel into the sky, is just so interesting. And yes, okay, it's about like sucking different people's cultures dry. And I think anyone who's a filmmaker or storyteller really, especially anyone of color who works in that space, really relates to this idea of people coming in wanting to suck your culture and your story dry. But that could have been a narrative that was set in Hollywood present day. You know, it's so much more complicated to set it in that time period. And oh my God, I just fucking loved it. Sinners rips.
Me too. I think it's one of the very, very best films of the year. An absolute refresh point in vampiristic cinema. And this year already felt like a year of vampirism in cinema. We had Nosferatu kicking off the year. And that was such a crossover hit that I could not fucking believe.
I couldn't believe it in the moment. I was like, when are they going to wrap this shit up? And then next minute, it's like $250 million gross. I was like, what? But also the thing, like for those people who are like, so it should be number one, because I sense that coming as well. You need time to sit with the film. And I love Sinners immediately in the moment, and you love Sinners immediately in the moment. But how we feel about that film, maybe it will be a Birds of Prey, where I loved it in the moment and thought it was going to change my life. And now 10 years later, 5 years later, blah, 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 it has grown even more in magnitude. Or maybe it just sometimes falls off the radar the way that people can get caught up, particularly in like award season, where you're like, it's the film with the blah, blah, blah. And is anyone still talking about Tar? Like maybe the lesbians, but the rest of us, you know? So it's there for now. And the fact that it's even made a list with some films that are nearly 100 years old is like pretty fucking sick.
Well, that is Sinners. It's our number 8. It could be a number 1 the next time we put this list together. Maria, why don't you give us your number 7?
My number 7 is, it's a scary vampire movie, because I feel like a lot of vampire movies are poetic and romantic in various ways, but I think it's important to actually have a scary vampire movie.
A straight up horror movie on the list.
A straight up horror movie. 30 Days of Night, baby, is my pick. It is
from David Slade,
the director of
Twilight
Saga, Eclipse.
Eclipse.
He just did Eclipse, which I would say is the most vampiric of the 5.
Yeah.
It has the most sort of like key vampire beats, has Australia's own Xavier Samuel in there. Very interesting. Of all the, like they all have different things that are interesting and unique about them, but that one in particular is interesting because David Slade directed it. But he also did Hard Candy, and that was the sort of thing that was interesting. He came off Hard Candy into 30 Days of Night, which was this graphic novel from fellow Aussie, Ben Templesmith and Steve Niles, and they had sort of shopped it around as a film after they'd sold the graphic novel rights, and it just sort of ignited this bidding war because people thought the story was so cool, which it is.
It is such an incredible premise. Why didn't you tell people what the premise is because it's so enticing.
30 Days of Night. There's a town in Alaska where it descends into darkness for 30 days and a bunch of vampires led by Danny Houston, who's played a version of a vampire in almost everything he's ever been in, whether it's Constant Gardener or the Crow
or
remake.
Or the Naked Gun. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's always playing some kind of vampire. It's really fascinating to me. They invade this town at the start of the 30 Days of Night and essentially massacre the town and start picking people off one by one.
If Insomnia is Alaska during the daytime, 30 Days of Night is it during the nighttime.
Controversial opinion, but Insomnia wishes it had what 30 Days of Night had, which is number 1, Josh Hartnett, number 2, Melissa George. Melissa Georging the fuck out of shit. But it's also just shot like an absolute motherfucker. Like it is such a, because you think about like the visuals of bright red, like arterial blood against white snow. And particularly in the graphic novel, which is very dialogue light, it really relies heavily on the visuals and sort of the poetry of the horror and how gruesome that can be. The way that's translated onto screen is it's genuinely scary, and they have all these creepy moments where, again, the vampires are such a specific design. They have their own language. They have these really interesting teeth and these kind of black eyes that I had just never quite seen vampires like that. They were almost X-File adjacent or like a Buffy Demon of the Week, where it was like a very specific visual style. Also written by Stuart Beattie, the screenplay.
Oh, another great Aussie, one of the great Aussie writers. Collateral.
Dude. Collateral, the best Michael Mann film. Sorry, Blake Howard, it's not Heat. But also...
Sorry, Blake, I agree with Maria.
Sorry, controversial. Dads and fatherless men are going to have to get another identity, which isn't Heat. But also shot in New Zealand. So you get this interesting sort of visual dichotomy, but also these great sort of Kiwi character actors like Manu Bennett in there. These people playing these different parts. And some of us were there on the ground floor with the like Josh Hartnett-sance.
Yeah.
I was like, bitch, I was there. I watched all those seasons of Penny Dreadful. Like, he's been good, stays good. But particularly with 30 Days of Night is such a hard performance because it is very dialogueless.
Yeah.
You know?
I must say I'm a little bit more mixed on this film than you are.
Yeah, most people are. It's not like a beloved film.
But I would say most of the things that are my detractors from this film, I think the pacing could be a little bit more interesting for me to build up some intrigue. But I agree with Maria on basically everything you've said. It's a shockingly nasty film. It's surprising how
Really
grisly
nasty.
it builds up to.
And a great Ben Foster as this like harbinger of doom. And he's literally only in it for like 2 or 3 scenes.
But perfect utilization of understanding how Ben Foster works in an ensemble.
Yeah, it was going to be him or Michael Pitt. You know what I mean? It's like, who's the creepiest boy?
Who's the biggest psycho that can make you feel horrible?
But also really interesting cinematography from Joe Williams.
Totally.
Who did
think it's so exciting.
all the Hunger Games movies.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking the OG ones, but also Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Like someone who has a really specific visual language that when you watch one of his movies, you're like, damn, why do I feel like I know this? And you go, oh, it's fucking Joe Williams. Like came from that music video world where you just like can shoot something that looks like you want to lick the screen.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say, to talk specifically vampirism, I think this film features the best vampire daylight burnouts ever put to film. Basically, from a design perspective, they turn into flaky charcoal and waft off. And I think the way that works in this film, that's something very specific I want to highlight. Like, it's a touch that I love in every vampire film.
Yes.
How are they going to do the burnouts? What are they going to do when the vampire turns to light? I think 30 Days of Night does it better than any other film.
And it has a thing that I think 30 Days of Night and Sinners would be a lovely double bill because there is this sort of sense of doom that follows throughout the whole movie. There's kind of like the end is inevitable in a way and the love is important, and that beautiful scene that you have at the end of Sinners where he's like, it was the best day of my life. Was it like that for you too? And you get to the end of these 30 days of night and there are all these special moments and special things shared between people amongst all the horror and pain. And anyway, I love that movie. 30 Days a Night rips.
That is 30 Days of Night, not to be confused with the other Josh Hartnett film, 30 Days and 30 Nights, about a guy who cannot fuck for one whole month.
Honestly, also a horror movie in its own way.
We've come to my number 6
Yes.
pick, and this is a film that I have talked about on the podcast before, but if we're talking vampires, it's one that I wanted to highlight. We're talking about Catherine Bigelow's early masterpiece, Near Dark. And when we were talking about this before, you said something so good, which was what actually pushed this onto my list compared to a few other movies I thought.
It's just me pushing
I'd
my
think about
agenda.
more. But I really like this idea of genre hybridity. And this is a really elegant merging of two genres, the subgenre of vampire horror, which I think is kind of never better than it is here in Near Dark. And I think it pairs very well with Sinners in that sense, because it also brings in another genre, which is the Western. And Near Dark is a neo-Western. It's set in contemporary times. It's basically band of strangers kind of come into town and run amok. But I think what it does so well is I think it's a really grimy original take on the vampire genre and the way that mythology kind of plays into another form of genre storytelling. And what really makes this one feel special to me is you've got this fantastic ensemble of actors that they're actually like deranged characterizations.
I was just going to say like a who's who of like that guys and gals, whether it's like Jeanette Goldstein or Lance Henriksen
or the
Bill...
great Bill Paxton, maybe the performance of a lifetime for Bill Paxton.
Oh my God, stop.
But it's such a great ensemble, and I think that's what Catherine Bigelow does so well. She does understand ensemble filmmaking. She does know how to calibrate performances, because there are some wild swings and wild takes, but they all build together to make something quite relentless tension, I'd say, as it builds to this great finale. And it's those two genres coming together throughout the entire story. That's where that climax kind of comes out to. It's like it's this almost double helix of these genres spinning around each other to kind of come up to like a grand Western finale, as it should be. It feels like a shootout coming together.
It's that fantastic thing that there's almost like a subgenre of vampire movies that are sort of about loneliness and found family, and this desperation for
That's
people
the rest of my
to...
list, mate.
But it's this desperation for people to create a family, and
Yeah.
you get it in Near Dark because the vampire troupe are a sort of found family and all have separate rich histories that you only glimpse in these little icebergs, but also things like Lost Boys have a similar type of vibe. Even Sinners, like Jack O'Connell's character is desperate to try and create connection.
It feels like a bat's nest, with these kind of characters, the way they hide out together.
Yeah, I don't know. Bats like super familial? Or are
I
you
don't
just
know.
going hard on the Dracula?
I'm going hard on the metaphors
I was
here.
like, I would have gone to Wolfpack, babe. They're all about it.
Oh, I dare
Dracula
not say
loves
wolf.
turning into
No,
wolves.
that'll be
Dracula
next
loves
year,
it.
Our next year list.
Okay.
But I think that's I think that's a really great point. And I think these all these characters in this, they, like you said, they have these different histories that are kind of awoken in it, where you kind of start placing them throughout time. It's something that I think a film that I dare say may not make the list, but I care about deeply, and I think is essential vampire cinema. The beloved Twilight franchise does so well.
Which is so fascinating because this is also when Near Dark comes out cinematically, it is basically almost the birthing point for a lot of great vampire fiction and serialized vampire fiction. So we start to get Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire series starts to kick off. Laurel K. Hamilton's vampire series, which is one of the big enduring ones. And all these different vampire series sort of start bubbling up in the late 80s to early 90s. And they all have this thing where they're weaving in touchstones from different histories and different cultures. And that's always like one of my favorite things is like, somebody lives forever. So they came from this time. And then that person came from that time. And all their collected stories are like a weight on their soul. It's really fascinating. And it's not something that gets a lot of space in Near Dark, but it is something
It's present.
it's amazing to behold. They thought about it.
Yeah.
Somebody like writer's room, PTSD, but somebody sat there and like built out the backstories for all these characters, knowing that you're going to see 2% of that. But doing all that labor and doing all that work pays off. I was always using it as a visual reference point, but also a kind of tonal reference point working on Firebite, because that was also in my mind, a vampire western, and most people who work on it, a vampire western. And they're really, truly only being, before Firebite, Near Dark as an example. There are graphic novels, absolutely, and there are like short stories, but there are not very many, and up until that point, Near Dark was the only one I knew of pop cultural vampire westerns.
And of course, Firebite is an Australian co-production. It aired on AMC, one season. Excellent show, worth checking out. If you are hungering for more vampire in the TV space as well.
Mate, you want to see Drazik as a vampire? Fucking slap on Firebite, baby.
That's what made me buy the fucking Blu-ray from overseas, because I couldn't find it in Australia. I was
Rob
like, I
Collins,
need to see him.
like eating that shit up. One of Australia's great movie stars.
That is Catherine Bigelow's Near Dark. I've talked about it previously on an episode. It was one of Charlie Clausen's picks. So you can go back there and listen to that bigger, longer conversation. But we're keeping it brief here today on our Best of Vampire. And we are now at your number 5 pick, Maria.
My number 5 is Byzantium, which is truly one of my favorite films of all time.
This is a film by Neil Jordan, the Irish filmmaker.
Bro, up the rah. Truly. And also probably best known for Interview with the Vampire. You know, that's sort of like the iconic piece. But he's someone who's such a consistent filmmaker. It's one of the things I love so much about him is that he'll jump genres, but Baby Girl's always working. He's always grinding shit out. And this was a film that I saw kind of accidentally while I was in Scotland researching my first book. And it was just so atmospheric and so moody. And then just so fucking cool and so deep. And it essentially uses vampirism as a metaphor for the patriarchy. So in this world, only men become vampires, and they pass on the secret to vampirism from like rich white man to rich white man. Gemma Arterton, the greatest, the hottest, the coolest, plays a young sex worker who essentially like sort of jockeys her way into vampirism and learns the secret to immortality. And all the patriarchal vampires freak out because they're like, oh shit, now we got a girl and she's poor and she's kind of a bit of a hoe. Like, what are you going to do with this immortality? And she's like curb the power of men and protect the weak. And they're like, ooh, please don't. And they essentially try to kill her. She goes on the run, has a daughter, Saoirse, played by Saoirse Ronan. And we sort of pick up pieces of the story across various timelines as this mother-daughter vampire duo are trying to have a quiet life. And it is the epitome of all things I want in a vampire movie, which is like there needs to be a degree of horniness, but I also want lore, I want world building, I want uniqueness and specificity, but I also want that romanticism as well. And it has this insane cast of like Sam Riley's in there, Caleb Landry Jones is in there, a guy born to play a vampire, like one of cinema's great creeps. But it is just such a beautiful, moving film and visually so stunning. And DOP is Sean Bobbitt, who is like kind of best known for doing a lot of great black films. So 12 Years a Slave, Widows, Judas and the Black Messiah. I think he was nominated for an Oscar for that. And it was based on this play by Maura Buffini. And it just has such a incredible intentionality to it. And it's a movie I've come back to again and again and again over the years. And if people are asking me for a recommendation,
this is your go-to,
Byzantium is my go-to. Like, it really is just, it would be, you know, up there in my top 10 of all time, such a special movie. But it is also one that after I saw it, like I said, was in Scotland researching my first book. And I was like, damn, where'd they film this? Hastings, across the other side of the country, but like England's not a real country. So I was like, okay, cool, I can drive there. No dramas. So I drove all the way to the other side of the country and was like running around, so excited, getting selfies in the spot where like Gemma Arterton decapitated a dude here, or like Saoirse Ronan licked Caleb Landry Jones's hand there. And I was so excited. Nobody else gave a shit. Like, it's just a small seaside village. But I just think that movie is truly so unique and kind of fulfills all the promise of Neil Jordan in the genre space. Because also he did In the Company of Wolves, that people...
An excellent film.
Super weird. And like, does it work as a film or does it just work cool as an art piece? Who could say? Me. It doesn't. But
to me, it works as a wonderful art piece. I like that.
He's one of my favorite filmmakers. I'm always interested in what he's up to. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've only seen it once. I've only seen Byzantium once. I'd love to see it again just because your recommendation always sits strong in my head. I like Neil Jordan a lot. Like, I really love Mona Lisa, his gangster film that he made with Bob Hoskins. And of course...
like not the Julia Roberts coming-of-age drama.
Not Mona Lisa Smile. This Mona Lisa is not smiling very much at all. And The Crying Game, I think, is an absolute classic and such a beautifully executed screenplay turning into a film that I think works so nicely. Byzantium, I think what really sticks out strongly to me is, one, the look of it, the art direction of it all looks just so beautiful. But... like you said, and what you kind of hinted at, I think that Saoirse Ronan, Gemma Atherton relationship is as interesting as any ever in this genre space. And there's so much interesting tension between those two as a mother and daughter. But I think it really sticks out strongly to me as something that's unique to this genre and a way to explore that mythology that feels quite unique to this film.
Yeah, and again, like just the hook of like vampirism being the patriarchy is just like, oh shit, what an elevator pitch. And how that's executed in terms of generational sort of repression and suppression of women and people of color, and it being this thing that's passed on from person to person and permission and this like literal boys club. It's just unbelievable. It's just such a rich text. And there's every time I watch it, there's always something else that I pick up in it or some other visual that I'm obsessed with. There's this amazing scene where Gemma Arterton, after she kind of emerges from this cave, if you will, she stands under a waterfall and the waterfall turns blood red. And it's sort of this euphoric moment of her stepping into her power as an immortal. And it is just one of the most visually stunning and unique just seconds of cinema that I've seen.
And it's a great example of what I think really works in this film, which is like this almost fairy tale folkloric element to it.
Exactly.
Which I think is something that is present throughout vampire cinema, but maybe it doesn't really touch too much else on what we're kind of building together on this list. That's why I think this is such a great pick at this point.
Thanks, bud.
My pleasure.
What's
that
yours?
Is Neil Jordan's Byzantium. That's our number 5 pick. I'm coming in at number 4, and I'm going to jump off of this because I think that alongside that Gemma Arterton and Saoirse Ronan relationship, I think the most interesting relationship ever in a vampire film are present in the film that I'm about to talk about, which is Thomas Alfredson's Let the Right One In, which I think, like Sinners, became an instant classic of this genre. It came out when I was in high school, and it was just one of those films that I think was, at that time, an access point for people to kind of take a step further into world cinema.
Yes.
Like, I think because it uses a genre entry point, I think it allows people to kind of step into Scandi cinema that may never have done so otherwise.
Yeah.
And I think it uses everything so beautifully well. This is, of course, a story about Oscar, a sensitive boy who is bullied.
I can see why you connect.
Of course, I was tortured as a young boy. Just kidding. I was really popular, and I was only bullied for one day, and then other people bashed that bully up. That is true. Yeah, that is true.
A little Charles Manson in the ring.
That was it. They go, you can't tease the funniest boy in
I
school. We're
didn't
going to
raise
bash
a
you
hand.
up.
My minions did it for me.
But who moves in next door to Oscar, this lonely boy, is Ellie, this kind of moody, strange, mysterious girl. And their friendship and bond builds slowly over this film. I think this story and this world created in Let the Right One In is so good. And it's so good that it has been transported to an American adaptation called Let Me In.
I was just about to say that's actually my preference.
I think it's
prefer
also
the
very
American
good.
remake. Yeah.
To me, they're neck and neck. Like, I think they're both excellently made.
Just because the text is very, like lots of Scandinavian novels, is very dense, and this was coming through in that era of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and there being this like big boom, and like Scandi noir was starting to kick off, and the novel is a very dense text, and the OG movie keep so much from it. And I think great adaptation is you have to cut shit. Like, it just has to go. And with the Matt Reeves one, there were lots of cuts that I thought just streamlined the story a bit, but also Chloe Grace Moretz and Cody Smith-McPhee.
Oh, they're marvelous in the remake.
And also a really horrific horror set piece where there's like I don't want to say her familiar, but
yeah, it is her familiar, and I think that relationship.
Like, what was the guy from Renfield?
Her
Renfield
her
is in the back
caretaker.
of a car,
Yeah.
ready to kill these teenage boys, and it's so scary and horrific. And I'm like, that's a completely invented set piece, but it's still staying true to the tone and the theme of what they were doing in the novel.
And it's a great cross-cultural translation of a text to American culture, American setting. I think it does it so well. But all that is really there in the original. And I think when I talk about the most fascinating relationships in vampire cinema, it is the relationship between Oscar and Ellie and the way that plays on prepubescent sexuality and how that is braced in a really delicate, interesting way.
And essentially grooming, really. That's sort of
And
what the
that's
story
the other
is
relationship
about.
that I find totally fascinating is that Renfield character and how that, the quote unquote Renfield character, her familiar, this older man who is not older than a vampire, but he is fucking old, looking after her and like doing her bidding to make her live and stuff. I think that triumvirate relationship is incredibly complex.
Yeah, E&M. That's like they'd be smashing it up on Tinder in this day and age, the three of them.
Hey, that's how we update this. We make them all the same age. We lose any of the nuance, any of the taboo nature
They're
of
all
it.
poly. You know, that's just what it's about.
But as well, like 30 Days of Night, your pick at number 7, I think that vampirism in the snow, there's something about it. This works. It's the coldness of those two things coming together. There's a coldness, a loneliness to the vampire. And I think that this film explores it so well because the loneliness is already there. Vampirism, it's a lonely life, but you can be together forever. And there's something in that I find quite disturbingly tragically beautiful.
Yeah, just like Twilight, same theme.
Exactly.
Did you ever see the stage play of Let the Right One In?
I did. I thought it was quite excellent.
It was cuckoo crazy. I was just genuinely the construction and the placement of all the squibs and how they were activating.
Oh my God, the best live blood play I've ever seen in any theatrical production.
And then the final scene, which, happens in a pool, they put a tank in there. And I was like, we got tanks in this bitch? Like, it was, I've never seen I don't really like theatre spoilers. I'm not really a play girly.
Spoilers for what? For people getting to know you?
Yeah. Spoilers to everyone. No, all my friends who are actors who invite me to plays. And I'm like, I love you. Not that much. But that is one of the best plays I've ever seen. Yeah. And horror, I think, particularly works so well on stage. And I just had no idea how they, or even if they could, adapt that story. And it just amazing. Really blew my tits off.
One thing I'll say to before we wrap up with the talk on Let the Right One In is that there is an inherent queerness to the vampire story and the way that the vampire explores sex and sexuality. I think it's delicately done in this film, and it's more in the subtext of this film that I think makes it really interesting.
That thought. I need to sneeze. Oh no, I'm good. I broke it. Sorry. I'm like, that's a really beautiful thought. Hang on. Hit you. Sorry.
We're gonna keep that in because I'm delighted by it. But I think that's what this film does so well is like it explores in a sensitive, in a subtextual manner. But if you are willing to go there, you can really find so much intrigue in that element of it. It's something that I think is
they do explore that more in depth in the book.
Yes.
The sort of like the gender and the trans identity and the sexuality of all it is much more deeper in the book, and they sort of like flirt at it in the film. They sort of like, hey, there's this story over here.
It hints at the depth of it all. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's really wonderful. I've never seen the TV series. There's a TV series adaptation of this with Demian Bashir.
I know, crazy. Yeah, I haven't watched that. It's not.
Either have I, but
there's this graveyard of horror series that it's like Wayward Pines and fucking Welcome to Derry and all that shit. That is, I'm just like, these are all things.
I'm never gonna do them.
I know, but I worked on half of them. But like, honestly, beautiful, grateful to be employed. But it is really fascinating, like where all those where that stuff goes. Just kind of disappears into the ether.
But that is Let the Right One In. Probably, I would say, Sinner's best competition for the best vampire film of the 21st century so far. But that is Let the Right One In. It is my number, whatever we're up to. What are we up to? What's the number that we're going to say? Number 4 is for you? Number 3?
I think that,
Yes,
so now
number
I do
three.
number 3.
Yes,
and then
you're
you
number
number
3.
2.
That
Yeah,
was
so
the number 4 pick. Let the right one in. Let's go to number 3. A big pick for Maria right now. I
Listen.
cannot wait to start talking about this film.
Mate, some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill. We're doing Blade, baby. Shout out to Marv Wolfman, who created the character back in the 70s. Kind of this amazing sort of boom of blaxploitation characters across comic books that was happening at the time. And just probably my favorite superhero movie of all time. Maybe like tit for tat with Birds of Prey, but it is probably Blade if I think about it. And just one of the greatest movie going experiences, one of those DVDs that gets passed around like the fucking tape from The Ring. And it's like, oh my God, have you seen Blade? Have you seen Blade? The best opening of any film ever for me in the Club Bloodbath. It is just everything I want, genuinely everything I want in a movie. I want characters that are cool and interesting. I want a world that's rich. I want depth. I want a fight at the end that kind of has a blood blister. I want amazing, rich textual lore. I want a bunch of vampire girls kind of dressed like anime characters in sort of schoolgirl outfits. Like, it just has everything I could possibly want. And also, when I'm trying to explain about why I love it so much, I have none of the words or language to, it has this depth of patriarchy this, or this thing of cultural this.
But it has it all. It's got all of that in there.
Blade is just fucking sick, man. It's just like the greatest. And, Blade 2 is also, like, if I was doing my top 10, like Blade and Blade 2 would both be in there. Shout out to my best mate, Blake Howard of One Hit Minute Productions, who got me a really cool Blade 2 standee for Christmas last year. It was pretty sick because I had to travel home with it with my surfboard. So I had 3 surfboards in the car, and then Wesley.
Don't check the surfboard. We've got contraband in there.
It was like, it's the best. I love Blade 2. That was like one of the best theatrical experiences I ever had going to see that movie. And they had oversold the session, so there were no more seats.
Wow.
So I just sat in the aisle.
You sat on some guy's lap.
me at 13, please, you sicko. Let the right one in type sicko. You would like that movie now. But it was just the coolest movie, and that slow-mo walk with the Most Def song was amazing. And just, the white guy who's moldy and has the facial tattoos and isn't moldy at all. But I was just like, wow, they acknowledge we exist in some way. But Blade is it.
Talk about, this is the coolest movie. You
Ever made.
neglected to mention the coolest thing about it, the sickest lead actor performance in the entire genre. You've got the ultimate Wesley Snipes in the best fucking costume of all time. You called out at the start of this chat, start of this, this entry in this chat about this mix of blaxploitation. I think that Blade goes toe-to-toe with Shaft as like one of the great characters.
Truly.
From looking at the silhouette to then seeing the character, and then with Blade going deeper into that family history and how he becomes Blade, who Blade is. I think it's beautifully complex.
Having a black mother that you see, there is this absence of black mothers and black matriarchy on scene. Yeah, okay, she's short. She just tried to seduce him at the end of the movie because she's a vampire too.
That is the best part of the movie for me. It's taboo. It's interesting. It's fucked up.
It's super fucked up, but this world is fucked up. I always think about that club that they go into, and they have all the Japanese vampires sort of like watching as this is like weird. It's just so stylistically and just everything about it is so unique. Even the villain, Frost, like him sort of being this like short boy club kid who sees the future in a vampiristic way that nobody else does. And you still have like great character actors with great faces like Udo Kier in there, who's been a vampire for half his career.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just... It really is, super fascinating to me. Also, He
is blood for Dracula, by the way. That's the connection.
Mate, he is fascinating. Every choice in it is fascinating. Even like Whistler is really interesting because they went to Patrick McGoogan for that, who is from The Phantom, obviously, as everybody knows. But it's just every piece of it is so specific and so unique and so unrecreatable. They only could recreate it in the context of Blade 2, and you had to get another sicko little freak like Guillermo in there to do a great job. It's just, I don't know what to say about Blade, man. It just rips dicks. I think about it like all the time, always. I probably watch it at least like once a fortnight.
Yeah, it's such a good movie. I had never seen it until 2020. And
Are you joking
I
me?
had never seen it until then. And do you know, for a good reason, because when I worked at a video store...
What was the good reason? You're scared of black people?
No, let me tell you this reason. This is a big reason why I was turned off ever seeing this film. When I worked at a video store, we had this like kind of gangly, nerdy customer that would come in. He would wear a full like leather trench coat and little sunglasses.
Okay, I'm familiar with the
and
man.
slicked back hair, and he called himself Blade. And there was one day where he would come in. He'd come in very often. One day he came in and invited me to his vampire transformation ceremony. My biggest regret in life is that I didn't go. I've thought about it all the time
But what if
since.
you were the victim, babe?
Oh, God, it'd be a great way to go out.
I don't know if it would.
Go out.
I don't know if it would be great.
But that was
you've seen... Well, we'll refer to it later.
This was a huge turn-off for me of going into Blade. Caught up with it. Loved every second of this sick flick. From charred up Donald Logue, terrifying, chomping his way through a fucking hospital, to finding out that the comic creator, like you said, is Marv Wolfman, who, that is awesome.
I interviewed him once back when I was a reporter at the Daily Telegraph, and they were like, where are we going to put this story? Like, where will this fit
Front
in our
page
pages?
news, his name's Marv Wolfman, and he created a vampire character.
Yeah, I was like, get out of here, Jacinta Campbell. I got an interview with Marv Wolfman coming up. Like, it was just, he's so interesting, and the kind of characters he creates, like Wolverine is obviously probably his most famous, but it's so specific in that blaxploitation, not just the silhouette, but also the haircut is so intentional, and just the thing like Sanaa Lathan, and just like all these things about it is just the most special. And, you know, the things that it does for David S. Goya, who obviously goes on for, you know, Nolan's Batman movies. It's just, it becomes this thing that Blade is so successful in a way that it sort of kills Black Panther. Like, they can't figure out how to do Black Panther because of what Blade became, and everybody thinks, oh yeah, Blade is so simple and by the numbers, it's 2 + 2 = 4. Well,
so
bitch, they still haven't been able to do a new one.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I can't believe people say Blade is so simple, but then you look and go, he almost fucks his mum or something. It's crazy. I love this movie, Blade. What a perfect number 3
perfect
pick.
movie. Perfect.
We're coming to the number 2. This is my final entry solo on this list. It's a film that I think you echoed when I said that I was really thinking about putting it on here.
Yeah.
From one of the true masters of horror cinema, George A. Romero, his 1977, in my opinion, masterpiece, Martin. Martin is about a young man who's convinced he's a vampire. He goes to live with his elderly and hostile cousin in a small Pennsylvanian town where he tries to suppress his bloodlust. This is
basically the story of your customer.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. My cameo in this
you
is
could have
the guy
been one of
walking
the
in.
women.
That
That's what
could
I'm
have
saying.
been.
That could have been your story.
But this is kind of like the vampire myth by way of like Paul Schrader and Scorsese's Taxi Driver, like God's Lonely Man. Like this really sad rumination of loneliness of the vampire myth translated really well to like this post-Vietnam America of like this kind of disaffected youth. It's all about that myth, but yet what really fascinates me about this film is it is also that myth completely beautifully demystified in a really grungy, low-level way.
Romero way. Like, really his signature when you think about it, which is finding ways to take a big, you know, as somebody who, I don't want to say invented the zombie, but kind of
invented zombie cinema.
Well, invented popular culture
Yeah.
zombies, right? But he has this gift to take a big sort of mythological concept and translate it into really specific stories like he does in Martin. And also the questions of it, of like, is this person really a vampire, or is this all delusion?
It's
is he
the best
Delulu?
version of that, and that's something that has come up quite a lot in the subgenre of vampirism. Are vampires real? Can this guy actually be a vampire? I think it's done so well in this because you never stop questioning it, and it convinces you each way, each time. Is he a vampire? Is he a serial killer? Is he doing fucking any of these things, or are it all like insane hallucinations? I think this is such a beautifully made movie. It's so, like, there's a sweetness to this horror as well, and sadness in like just being in Martin's head. No matter how fucked up and sad he is, you actually do feel sorry for him the entire time.
I don't know if I agree, purely just because of the multiple rapes and or murders.
Hey, that's where you and I differ,
Controversial
mate.
take.
Yeah.
No, but I think all vampire movies are sad.
Yeah.
I think that is like one of the unifying traits of a vampire movie. Even if you talk about things like Only Lovers Left Alive or Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Fuck, those would be two other ones I feel bad not putting up there. I love those movies
but
so
it's
much.
okay. You can still love other vampire movies that are also kind of arty and like farty and, they still exist out there.
They still exist out there.
But Martin is maybe one of the best examples of sad vampirism and like something that really captures that
the tragedy
feeling.
of it all.
Yeah.
Maybe the sweetness is the wrong word, but it's the tragedy that kind of builds an empathy because you're seeing it through his perspective.
Exactly.
But the other thing I want to shout out to in this film is one of the other signatures of Romero in this era is there's this kind of power to the local regional filmmaking aspect of it all. This is Romero's most personal masterwork. It's his vision of Pittsburgh. It feels really, really real from seeing it from this kind of sinking perspective of Martin's depression.
Yeah, in the same way that they are able to make Detroit such a character and Only Lovers Left Alive.
Yeah.
It's like this city that's dying. So of course it attracts the undead and the city becomes a character. There's a really beautiful piece when Romero passed away by Ben Sachs, I believe, sort of talking about how Martin feels like his most personal film in a lot of ways, which I find super interesting. And then especially in the context of watching, I just watched Tina Romero, his daughter's new movie, Queens of the Dead, which is basically a zombie movie set within like a drag club. And it's also it has that same thing, but completely different than her father's, where it's so specific, okay, this thing you think, zombies, vampires, whatever, in the most specific setting with a really specific message where our intent is like a knife, whatever the particular story is.
That is number 2. That is George A. Romero's Martin. We are at our joint number 1.
Join number 1. Let's hold hands.
We're joining hands. A film that we both agree on. A film that...
Breaking Dawn Part 1.
It is a masterclass. It's a masterpiece. But a film that...
Edward and Bella finally fuck.
Another 21st century film.
Yeah.
That actually may knock out the other 2 that we put in there as a pinnacle because it holds dear to it so much of the history that we've been talking about vampiristic cinema. We are talking about the 2014 comedic faux documentary masterpiece from Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement. We're talking What We Do in the Shadows. Vampires as housemates in New Zealand. I have to let you kick this conversation off.
Keeping it mean, moldy mean. The only film with moldy vampires. Sorry to the white guy in Blade 2 who had Moko, but was not actually moldy. Sorry to that guy. Sorry to him. It is so funny, so sad in the way that vampire movies should be. Romantic, super weird, super fucked up.
That tight-knit family nest kind of feeling.
The found family obsession, not just in the vampires, but also in the werewolf pack. What are we? Werewolves, not swearwolves. But it's so also you talk about the way things are embedded in place, and it's like such a, obviously there's spin-off. It becomes a media engine, right? Because you have the TV series that I would argue is probably better known now than the film, based on a short film they did called Some Interviews with Some Vampires that was almost a decade before the movie. Movie comes out, great year for horror in New Zealand cinema. Housebound also came out that same year. It's really special. But then spawns this TV series that becomes a big hit, wins all these awards, has all these stars in it, incorporates other aspects of vampiric pop culture. But then you also have Wellington Paranormal, which like resurfaces the cops who go there for the like essentially the fire alarm, but they're looking for Peter. And it also expands that really specific world of New Zealand and Aotearoa pop culture and demonism and supernatural shit. All of the things that if you're a horror girly or a Kiwi, two things I happen to be,
if
but
you're Maria Lewis.
Whatever. But if you like horror in pop culture, this is like, there's so many little treats in there for you, so many special things. But also if you don't like those things at all, it's still just really fucking funny and really special and just really unique. It's just there is no other film like it within the genre. There are definitely other horror comedies for sure, but nothing quite like this, and nothing that also has that kind of faux documentary set up in a way that is truly so special.
It's such a funny movie. It uses the vampire myth and finds the comedic gap in it, which is how does a character see themselves and how do we see that character in such a great way. Like, it stands up there with, you know, the great Christopher Guest films as far as the faux documentary, mockumentary style of comedy goes. Because what I think that kind of genre does so well when it's in... Like, when it's on TV, the faux documentary, mockumentary kind of style of comedy, it becomes a satire on culture. But when it's in the film space, when it's a contained film, it becomes a satire or parody on genre. And here it kind of like parodies that specific, like, hey, we're like a direct cinema kind of documentary where we're going in there. We're also having these meetings and talking heads with these characters.
It's a film that's influenced by Dracula as it is Big Brother.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's wild. Like, what else could you use as a reference point for that? Even things that are the faux documentary style within the horror space, like Creep, it is doing something completely different and exists in a completely different world, and is also... Again, like the benefit of Taika and Jermaine coming off the back of Flight of the Conchords and a bunch of separate successes is it has the opportunity to be really ambitious in a way that is truly so fascinating.
It is such a great cast of like great New Zealand comedy stars and actors. Johnny Bra, I think, is so funny in this. Jackie Van Beek's fantastic.
Corey's amazing, really underrated.
Exactly. It's just such a good film. This is What We Do in the Shadows, number one. And I think it will remain, like, we've talked about a few great 21st century vampire films in this list, and I think that this one does still deserve to be quite near that top.
Can I use this moment to transition to a present that I brought you?
No.
Because everybody comes to the video store and they take, and I want it to be different.
Wow.
And give.
Okay, wow, thank you.
So
I will accept.
Okay.
I will accept
it. It is a DVD copy, I think in Russian.
Oh my God. This is a DVD copy of Mel Brooks' Dracula Dead and Loving It,
baby.
In Russian. I think it is in Russian or like some kind of Yugoslavic or something.
Yeah, not to be a dumb bitch, but I could not work out the language. But it was the only...
Maybe it's Polish?
Girl, if you say so. It was like...
Wow, maybe it's in the native Romanian as it should be.
It was the only DVD copy I could find online because I was like, I want to bring something to the video store.
Hell, mate. That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Maria Lewis, you are an all-star. You've completed your Tarantino shift here at the video store. You can take over when I die.
Take that fucking raka. What did they bring? Hectic Greek twin energy. Fuck yeah. I brought
Greek
treats.
Triplets, excuse me. We were that on that episode. All with me.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say they're like Australia's second most important Greek twins. But I guess now they're Greek triplets. So fuck that off.
Exactly. The Philippine triplets.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I hope you like wrestling, babe, because you're about to get shirtless.
I like it. But Maria, thank you so much for joining me in here. We had such a great list together. We picked the 8 greatest vampire films. Our recommendations unto you, the dear viewer and listener. Sinners.
Oh, fuck.
I couldn't remember what order we did them in.
Mate, I can't tell the difference between Russian and Polish. Now I'm out here having to remember off the top of the dome.
I've got it
okay,
on the dome.
No, you've got it. You go.
Sinners, 30 Days of Night, Near Dark, Byzantium, Let the Right One In, Blade, Martin, and What We Do in the Shadows.
Can I ask you before we go, is there anything, because I know you need to get your international cinema bag like off your chest, your little like sparkly diamond encrusted chest, some things or maybe vampire texts that you think are important that we didn't have space to mention that you can just like
I really love 2 New York films, 1995, both of them. Both have the same thematic premise, but such different executions. I've talked about them on the show before. The Addiction from Abel Ferreira and Habit.
Can't stand it.
I love those 2 movies. Habit, I think, is also such a great exploration of it. Belgian film, Daughters of Darkness. That was one that I really wanted to put on here, but Knee Duck won out in the end.
Better choice.
Anything
Better
else
choice.
for you? Any other kind of honorable mentions?
I think Blackula is really fascinating.
Great pick. But we
Super
had an NDA,
interesting.
no Dracula
No
rule.
Dracula. It would have been on the list. Also, there's a little movie out of Ireland called Boys from County Hell, which is about an Irish road crew who essentially unearth a vampire kind of by accident. And it's sort of in that similar vein of, I call it like Attack the Block genreism with things like Vampires v. the Bronx, which is... All vampire stories, as we know, are really about real estate. So Vampires v. the Bronx is interesting because the real estate developers are vampires, and that's really fascinating. But I mean, like, Lost Boys fucking rips.
Oh, that was the one that really stung not putting it on.
No, but also Buffy the Vampire
still
Slayer
believe.
original movie is great. The Little Vampire, Mad Monster Party. There's
I'm
a
glad
lot of
that would have been insane if you put
Little Vampire.
on
I'm out here like, let's talk
I would
about
have put another
Lippy
rule.
Nicky.
No Jonathan Lipnicki lists as well.
You know he's really buff now. Have you seen it?
I've seen them all. I've seen the pics, yeah.
It's upsetting. Daybreakers, I think, is sick. Shout out to like a little
the
Aussie
Spearigs.
dystopian vampire movie, and like a really like Willem Dafoe's always popping up in vampire shit in a really fascinating way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots, but those are the ones that particularly like really stick out to me as interesting.
We could have done a fucking 30 film list between the two
I
of
wanna,
us. Yeah.
I was so tempted to put Vampire Academy, the film, on the list, but I was like, I think you'll walk out of the podcast.
No,
if I do that.
I think it's valid in there. Like, it's valid in there. Oh, hey, another one, So Vam. My friend Alice Mayamaki. And Alice's new film, The Serpent's Skin, is in that vampire space as well. It's very Buffy coded. Masterpiece.
That is genuinely my thought on watching Serpent's Skin. Is I was like, what if Alice directed an episode of Buffy?
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what that feels like.
Fantastic film.
Also, the Interview with a Vampire TV series is really incredible, and I personally think does a better job of like taking the characters and the story and adapting it. Not in a colorblind way. Like, it's not just colorblind casting.
I gotta watch this show.
It's unbelievable. But also the True Blood book series is amazing. Like,
we could keep going on and on, but we have to wrap it up. Thank you all for joining us here in the last video store to talk about some of the best vampire films of all time.
Happy 20th anniversary to Twilight.
Happy 20th anniversary to Twilight.
The books, obviously, the movies came out 20.
Thank God. I started aging rapidly when you said that. But Maria Lewis, thank you so much for joining me here.
Thank you.
We are co-presenting Bram Stoker's Dracula, November 1st November 1st at the Sydney Opera House. Tickets are in the show notes. Come watch it with us. Come talk to us about that film. Cannot wait to screen it. Maria, you're a wonderful author. The Graveyard Shift is my recommendation to get into the literature or oeuvre of Maria Lewis. It is a fucking sick Melbourne set slasher that I give a highest recommendation to. It's so fun. But you've written so many other books in the genre space as well.
Yeah, I mean, The Graveyard Shift is my 11th novel, but if you like Marvel books, I wrote a book for Marvel. There's an Assassin's Creed one. There's a whole series called the Supernatural Sister series, which is different types of classic horror movie monsters, banshees, witches, ghosts, werewolves, vampires, whatever, as main characters. And, you know, if you can read and like to, then they're all there for you. But Graveyard Shift is set at Halloween and is essentially like a sort of Scream for Aussie millennials.
Yeah, it really is. And if you can't read, high recommendation for Maria's Phantom podcast.
Oh, I was going to say the audiobook. But yeah, the Phantom podcast also works. Yeah, Phantom Never Dies.
Such a good podcast, good documentary listening for you there. Maria, happy Halloween, darling.
Happy Halloween!
Thank you for joining me here in the last video
Best time of the year, Scorpio seasons.
Absolutely. We're back next week talking about some more fucking movies. Until then, I'll see you at the movies, baby.
The last video store.